Hello, my name is Robert Gallahan, and I'm a technical support analyst with the identity management team, focusing primarily with the Oracle Access Manager product. I'd like to welcome you to the Oracle Identity and Access Management Insights session titled Using the Stack Patch Bundle for Oracle Access Management. This is about a 25-minute presentation that's recommended for anyone using the 12c version of OEM, specifically anyone that's going to be patching OEM. We're going to start with a brief introduction to the OEM patching and the stack patch bundle, and we'll discuss the limitations and requirements of the stack patch bundle process. We'll then explain the stack patch bundle process specifically for OEM and run through the stack patch bundle application. Finally, we'll provide a summary and some references to documentation that talks about the stack patch bundle process. In earlier versions of OEM, all the patches had to be applied individually. So if you wanted to patch OEM and WebLogic and libovd and OPSS, you'd have to individually download those patches and apply them using their respective utilities. You'd have to figure out which patch was the right version for the corresponding version of OEM, or find the latest version of each patch. In 12.2.1.4, they came up with this concept of a stack patch bundle, which is a bundle of all the patches of the main product and the underlying product for the identity products suite, which is OAM, Oracle Access Manager, OIG, Oracle Identity Governance, OUD, Oracle Unified Directory, and OID, Oracle Internet Directory. The stack patch bundle contains the fixes for the primary product and the underlying products that are applied in a single series of scripted operations. Individual bundle patches continue to be available for these components if you want to use the old way, but we recommend using the SPB because it streamlines the patching process and makes it easier to obtain all the available fixes for an IDM installation at once, including any currently available security fixes. The stack patch bundle comes with a tool called the Stack Patch Bundle Automation Tool, or SPBAT is what I'll call it. This SPBAT can only be used on Linux 64-bit and is only available for 12c versions. There's no support for zero downtime patching with the SPBAT tool, as the underlying patches are not zero downtime patches. In the case of OEM, patching without apparent downtime can still be achieved using a multi-data center configuration, which is having multiple OEM clusters which function in conjunction. But individual clusters have to be down during patching. So there's no, if you have a single cluster of OEM servers, there's no zero downtime patching with this, or with the standard process. The SPBAT tool will not take a backup of the environment or configuration prior to patching and does not have rollback support, so it's strongly recommended that a backup of the environment be taken prior to patching. That's also true with the traditional patching methodology. I mean, it does have rollback support, but we still recommend that you take a backup beforehand. In the case of OEM, generally you could back up the Oracle home, the domain, and the database. There is no SPB for the web gates for OEM. Generally, patching for the web gates isn't as complex as patching the managed server and the domain, because the web gate is simply a plug-in to the web server. For 12c, only OHS and OTD web gates are available. So patching the web gate is just patching the web gate. You may also want to patch OHS and OTD, but those are really the only components to patch there. It's generally expected by the SPBAT that each product, if you have multiple products installed, OAM, OIG, OUD, OID, are all in their own middleware home. It's also recommended in the install guide. It's not a requirement, but it's definitely a best practice to have each one in a separate middleware home. If there are multiple products in a single middleware home, you can patch them with the SPBAT tool. However, you will have to run each iteration of the tool once for each product in that middleware home. So you can't just run it once. If you have OAM and OUD in the same middleware home, you'd have to run it twice, once for each. Now we're going to go through the process of applying the stack patch bundle to an OAM middleware home. So the stack patch bundle process can be broken into 4 phases. Preparation phase, where we download the patch, validate the OPatch version, determine the values used for patching. There's no execution of the SPBAT tool for this phase. It's just getting everything in place. An analysis phase where we execute the SPBAT pre-stop command. So we do actually run the script in this step. It verifies the environment suitable for patching. The servers can remain running during this phase. You don't have to shut anything down. It generates an HTML output page with the results of the analysis. Then we go to the patching phase where the servers are shut down and the patches are actually applied using the SPBAT downtime command. So this is the point at which you stop the servers. Finally, there's a post-start phase during which we restart the services, execute a post-start command, verify the function of the servers, and for some products, it's necessary at this point to execute some post-patching scripts, specifically OIG. I believe requires you to run a post script specific to OIG. There are no real post-patching operations for OAM. So now we'll go through each phase of the execution and give you a little example. So the first phase, the preparation phase, is you download the patch. There are a multitude of ways to get there, but I would recommend using Note 736.372.1 for OAM, which has a listing of all the available OAM bundle patches for all the versions since 11G, including the WebGate patches. It does include the SPBs there as well. Or you can use Note 262.726.1.1, which lists the current SPB. The same SPB download can be used for OAM, OIG, OID, and OUD. So if you've already downloaded for one of the other products, you can just use the copy you've downloaded if it's the current copy. You would create a directory or pick an existing directory to extract the SPB contents to. You'd identify your Oracle home location or middleware home location. They're the same thing in 12C. We'll use those terms kind of interchangeably in the documentation. Usually the SPB doc seems to refer to it as middleware home or MW home. So once you extract the SPB to the designated directory, you can verify your OPatch version by running the OPatch version command, $oracle home/OPatch/OPatch/version, space version. If your OPatch version doesn't meet the minimum requirement, which is explained in the readme.html that comes with the SPB, then there is an OPatch patch that you can use to get your OPatch to the current version. And the steps for applying that OPatch patch are in a README in the zip file that the OPatch patch is contained in. We do have to repeat these steps for each cluster member in the environment unless your binaries are stored on shared storage. If your binaries aren't shared storage, you only have to run this process once. Otherwise, you should run this for every member in the cluster. So here we are unzipping the downloads. You can see when you, unzipping the stack patch bundle. When you unzip it, it creates this directory structure under your current location that starts with IDM_SPB_ your product version dot and the particular version of the SPB that you've downloaded. In that directory, it will create a readme.html file, which you can then look at. It explains the SPB process, basically what we're going through here. It will also have information on the requirements and the minimum OPatch version. We can see here the minimum OPatch version required for this application is 13.9.4.2.5. In my environment, I am using the base install of 12214 OAM. So I go out and check my OPatch version by running the Oracle Home OPatch version command, and we see it's not high enough. It's 13.9.4.2.1. So I'm going to have to update my OPatch. To do that, I go to the IBM SPB 12214 blah blah tools OPatch generic directory. Under this directory is a patch that's the OPatch patch. It's a zip file containing the OPatch patch. You unzip that file. I believe it's always going to be the 688.0.880 directory, no matter what version of OPatch it is. You go to that directory. If you're not sure how to apply, and even if you think you're sure how to apply, review the readme.txt, which will have instructions on how to apply the patch. In this case, it's an OUI installer, so I add my Java home to my path, and I run Java with the -jar qualifier and use the opatch generic.jar that was in the patch file with a silent qualifier and specifying the location of the Oracle home. And that'll run. It's a pretty uneventful run. You will want to take a backup before you patch OPatch. It does tell you that in the readme.txt file. For me, this is a VM, so if something goes wrong, I can just redeploy the machine. But certainly in a valued environment, in a production environment or a high test environment, you'd want to take backup even before patching OPatch, because there is no rollback for the OPatch patch. You can see now I rerun the version command, and yay, I've got the right version, 13.9.4.2.5. So that completes the analysis phase, pre-stop phase, and we can proceed on, that completes the preparation phase, and we can proceed to the pre-stop phase. So in the analysis pre-stop phase, we execute the SPBAT.sh pre-stop command. The servers, again, can remain running during this phase. We review the resulting HTML report document. It generates this lovely HTML report that tells you if you can continue and what some of the detailed information is about the patching, whether there are conflicting one-off fixes that you may have to get new copies of. If there are conflicts or issues, they should be resolved before proceeding to the patch phase, obviously. And we should repeat the pre-stop command on each host in the environment. I'd expect that all the hosts in a given environment are on the same patch level. If one doesn't have a problem, I wouldn't expect the others to have a problem, but it's still best to repeat the command on each host, unless, again, you're using shared storage for the binaries, in which case you only really need to run it once. So this is the execution of the pre-stop command. As you can see, we go to the IBM directory tools SPBAT Linux 64 SPBAT, and we run this SPBAT.sh script, and we pass it a bunch of parameters. The first one is the type of patch we're applying. In my environment, it's OAM. This could be OIG or OUD or OID. If you run the SPBAT.sh without parameters, it will spit out the valid values for the parameters. We specify the phase as pre-stop, because that's what we're doing. We pass it the middleware home, which is the middleware home or Oracle home location. Like I said, those are the same in 12c. We give it the download directory, which isn't really the download directory. It's where you unzipped it to, and it's where you unzipped it to plus the IBM SPB version.patch number that was created when you unzipped the SP bundle. And you can provide a log directory where logs will be written. So once you execute the command, it will spit out a bunch of asterisks as it proceeds. This does take a little while to run. It took probably 10 to 15 minutes to run in my environment. So it takes a little bit. Don't be too agitated if it doesn't come back immediately. It generates an HTML file as a report, which we can then go and look at in the browser. So this is the report file. You can see at the top it gives an overall summary saying that you can continue the SPB. I go through the details. It kind of summarizes the details at the top too, but there are 5 detail sections. One is, do we meet the minimum patch version, which we've already made sure that we do. It's supposed to provide, in this case it has nothing to provide. We verify which patches in the bundle are going to be applied to the Oracle home. So if you did have multiple products in the same Oracle home and you'd already run the SPB for one of those products, some of these may already be in place, or you could have already applied some of these patches and it will realize that and know it doesn't need to apply those patches. Then we're going to check and see if there are any one-off patches in the Oracle home that conflict with the patches in the bundle. This will tell you if you have a patch that's going to be rolled back and not reapplied. If you do have any one-off patches that don't get included in the bundle, usually we try and include all the available patches in the bundle patches at the time the bundle patches were built, but there is a bit of lag time between the cutoff for the bundle patches and when they're released. You can go out to My Oracle Support and see if there's a version of that one-off patch for the SPB you're applying, for you look for specifically the OEM patch that you're applying, assuming it's an OEM one-off. See if there's a version for that OEM bundle patch version. If there isn't, you can file an SR with Oracle Support and we'll get one generated for you against the appropriate version. And finally, it verifies that the Oracle home contains the required prerequisites. That is, if you're telling it you want to run a type OEM, it makes sure the OEM is actually installed there. It's pretty straightforward. So assuming that we've gone through this, it tells us we can proceed and there are no conflicts, we can move on to the patching and downtime phase. We execute the SPBAT.sh command again for but with a downtime parameter. Any servers, including members of the cluster accessing the middleware home, must be shut down when this command is run. So the whole cluster has to be shut down. Furthermore, if there are multiple products that access the binaries in the middleware home, all those products need to be shut down for the patching process. It's recommended you take a cold backup when executing the before executing the downtime command of the middleware home and domain home, the entire IDM setup, and the database used for the IDM schemas. There is no rollback, again, for the SPBAT. So if, God forbid, something goes wrong, you'll be reliant on restoring a backup to recover the environment. After executing the command and before starting the servers, review the output logs for any errors, and review the post-install and config steps instructions in the SPB readme.html for the product patched. It puts those steps in the post-start phase, but actually there are steps that need to be done prior to starting. So it's a little confusing in that regard. So you can see we're running almost exactly the same command for the downtime phase, the patching phase, as we did for the analysis phase. The only difference here is dash phase downtime. You could feasibly, if you wanted, specify a different logs directory, but everything else will need to be the same. This command runs, takes a few minutes. In my environment, it took between 5 and 10 minutes, I believe, for this to run. When it finishes, hopefully it will tell you it's completed successfully. If not, That's why you've got a backup. I mean, you can take a look at the logs and see what may have happened if it didn't complete successfully, but hopefully it goes through okay. For OEM, after it runs, the post-patching activity in the README says to delete the temp and cache directories for all the servers in the domain. So each of the managed servers and the admin server has these directories if they've been started, temp, TMP, and cache. You just go out and remove or rename those directory trees. In your environment, you may also have a policy manager managed server. In my environment, that server has never been started, so there are no directories under the domain home to fiddle with. So there's one more phase, the post-start phase. This is pretty quick. You restart the admin and managed servers for the domain. You execute the SPBAT.sh post-start command. You review the logs for failures and verify that the servers are actually working after patching. For OEM at this point, it actually doesn't look like the post-start command does anything, which isn't too surprising. If you apply the OEM bundle patch, there are no post-installation steps other than deleting the temp and cache directory. So not too surprising. But run it anyways. Again, we run this on all the members of the cluster unless you have shared storage. It's basically the same command again with the -phase parameter set to post start. It runs instantly. If you blink, you'll miss it. It'll give you a status for OEM. I can't even imagine a scenario where the status for this wouldn't be success. You can run this when the servers, after the servers have already been restarted. So you can restart the servers and then run the post-start phase. Okay, and I'll give you a few references here. This and summarize briefly. The stack patch bundle can be used to apply patches to all components used by an identity management suite instance, simplifying the process significantly over applying individual patches and increasing security by providing all the security fixes for the product and the underlying components, and reducing downtime because it's doing all the patching at once. The same SPB can be used for OEM, OIG, OID, and OUD environments, provided they're all on the same major version. All OEM patches can be found in MyOracle Support Note 736.372.1, including the SPB. That's a great note because it has all the historical OEM patches, including WebGate patches, and the SPBs, and the single bundle patches for OEM. Details from the SPB for all products can be found in Note 265.7920.1. That's what 99% of the stuff in this presentation was pulled from. That note discusses how to apply the patches for all products and goes into a little bit greater detail. Note 262.7261.1 enumerates the current certified patches for the IDM products. And Note 2676718.1 provides a link to an Oracle Advisor webcast, sort of a similar presentation that gives a slightly more detailed yet generalized look at the IBM SPB because it covers, again, all the products in the SPB application and a little bit longer presentation. Thank you again for tuning in to today's Oracle Identity Access Management Insights session titled Using the Stack Patch Bundle for Oracle Access Management. We look forward to seeing you at the next one, and have a nice day.